parents get lazy. You don't want to deal with your kid.
You're missing out on watching your kid grow up so you can watch stupid people fight on social media.
We got this story from the Daily Mail. America's teen mental health crisis laid bare. 1 in 10 high school students have attempted suicide. 30% are depressed most of the time. And a third are abusing drugs, CDC data shows. And I'll tell you why. Because they don't have anyone to look up to strive to become, to emulate. And they don't know how to improve themselves.
I wonder if it is that they are not told that they need to find people to look up to. If you're not really given anyone that you should aspire to be like,
well, you're told to just love yourself the way you are, and if you're not happy, that's a very, very dangerous thing to accept, right? Mm-hmm. That there's no aspirational nature in which there's somebody you want to go out. They also say that like nobody in America wants to be astronauts anymore. They all want to be social media influencers, which just sounds awful to me. Like that's not a life that the average person should want to live, I would think. So
it's not attainable.
I do think this is part of the problem, that they don't have good role models. But I obviously don't think it's the only problem.
Well, a lot of what they're being taught is a bit of something's wrong with you, something's wrong with America. There's inherently bad things about America and Americans, therefore. So how can you actually feel good about who you are when there's this constant drone of you should hate yourself being pummeled into your brain every day at public school?
There's that. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. I want to kind of stick with this conversation, so to stay with them for 1 second, but I do want to get back to that because this is about, they're saying they don't have anyone to look up to. I think they do have people that they look up to. I just think they're looking up to really shitty people who are telling them things like what you just said.
Yep.
People who are telling them your body is broken, telling them that your depression is okay and you should just sit there in it.
Or it's someone else's fault and you're then a victim, which is a very powerless place to be. And that's where we're putting our children.
Right. So it's not that they don't have aspirational, but we think about who, when we were growing up, who were we taught to look up to? I mean, we had, they're talking about astronauts. We had astronauts, people who were walking on the moon, people who were curing cancer. We had, people like Rosa Parks who put themselves in uncomfortable situations to make things fair and good for other people. We had Martin Luther King. He was pounded into my brain as a child as somebody who taught us how to deal with conflict with love and calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To peacefully make your point over and over again, and for people not to be judged by the color of their skin, but the content and quality of their character. And we're not doing that now. We're using the color of your skin as an excuse for lack of character. So what is gone on in that movement today would shatter everything and every piece of work Martin Luther King Jr. did to create a civil society where everybody loves and respects one another without regard to your skin color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've moved past skin color now, and it's about who your sexuality is the most important thing about you, which that's absurd. But let's see what these guys.
And social media is also doing this to a lot of the kids, not just drugs, but the fact that you're constantly living your life through the lens of your phone is not a healthy way to live either.
I mean, it's kind of funny. I remember back when MySpace was a thing, I'd look at the accounts of my friends and they post these amazing pictures and I'd get jealous being like, man, where are they at? Like, what are they doing? Like, I'm just sitting here. What's going on? And of course, it's all curated, selectively edited to make it seem like you're cooler or better or doing something.
Yeah, but Tom would never censor you.
Tom would never censor you. He was a good dude, right?
He's like a travel photographer now.
Yeah. And he never censored us. But then
how hard it is for these kids. So remember, we had like 17 and YM and Cosmo magazine as young teenagers, and we would get this magazine once a month. It would arrive if you had a subscription, or you'd go to the newsstand and buy it and flip through and look at pictures of beautiful people doing amazing things and have those same feelings.
Yeah. And now you are bombarded with those images of perfection, which only comes from a lot of filters every single moment of the day. It's really interesting. Our teenage son, our youngest, who's the only one still at home, he's got an Xbox. And the other day he told me, he said, I like playing video games sometimes, But if I play more than 2 days in a row, I notice that I begin to become depressed. So, I mean, it's really interesting that he picks up on that and acts accordingly and pivots away from something that's going to be bringing him down.
That's a lot to do with you guys. This kid, as they say, goes out and touches grass all the time. When my son, Sonny and I were at their house, and Tom and your son and my son, Sonny, went out into the woods.
Yeah.
And Sonny, for my son, it was like, I remember Sonny still talks about how they just walked through a stream. And my son stood on the other side. Tom and Chance went through, and my son stood there and was like,
now what?
now what? But, and your husband was like, just walk, schmucko. Like, your feet are, your shoes are going to get wet. So what?
It'll be okay.
You're going to be okay. And he did. And he realized, and it was a big learning moment for my son that he still talks about where,
That's interesting.
so my shoes got wet and I was a little uncomfortable, but big deal. And it helps him now to like just get through anything that's a little annoying, like whatever, just keep going.
Yeah.
And it was a simple moment.
Yeah.
These kids are not out touching grass. They are in this phone 24/7. So there's something that monthly we had a bad feeling. We were able to move on from it and still build up our own lives and not feel like we were less than because of what we were seeing. They're seeing it constantly. Your son has the brains to walk away.
Yeah.
And go work out. My son too. He works out for an hour and a half or 2 hours every single day.
Yeah.
Gets out of this world.
The screen world is not the real world.
No. And even though this is where we make our living, for us, we are still stepping away.
Yeah.
We were just talking about before we jumped into these chairs just now. We're going to the gym in a little while.
Yep.
You got to get out of here. These kids, man, no wonder they're so depressed.
Yep.
Oh, and they're all on drugs too. They're all on psychotropic medications. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And there was recently, the Ritalin shortage?
Yes, that's right.
And
yes.
apparently all these teenagers were losing their freaking minds.
Yep.
Because parents, and I'm going to say it, get fucking lazy. Everybody has to, you don't want to deal with your kid.
It's easier
So
just
it's
to
easy
get
to just put them on drugs. And the teachers don't want to deal with your kid. So the teachers recommend that you put your kid on drugs so that they're all just little zombies sitting in the classroom.
So
that's what's going on.
My oldest brother, when he was in school, they told my mother he should be on Ritalin, and she refused. She was like, I'm not going to drug him. I'm not going to dope him down. I'm going to learn to deal with who he is.
And he got to grow up and be who he was.
Yeah.
And I get a little bit older, and then I'm hanging out with my friends driving in the car. I'm like, this is boring. This is stupid. Why did it look so cool? Why did it look fun? Because people would be like, look what we're up to. And so that's all it is these days times 1,000.
Yep.
So we've already heard the stories of people photoshopping themselves into fake places to try and get likes and make themselves seem more interesting. When there is nothing to strive for or to work towards, you become depressed. And so what's happening now, I think, for young people, when I'm a kid, I had music, skateboarding, computers. Like, there were things I looked at, I'm like, I want to do that. Kids today are looking at social media and being like, all you got to do is post a picture. Then they post a picture. They have no idea, like, what am I supposed to do now? And that's all you get is social media recognition.
There was influencers that would just go to Coachella and take a picture outside and then leave. Like, they wouldn't actually even go to the event.
There are services where you can rent a private jet for a photo.
Yep.
And that's it. You just go in, you take your Instagram photo and put whatever location you want and you're out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. Basically, that's that and AI generated accounts, fake photos, fake experiences, and all that.
I wonder if there's any AI influencers yet that we don't know
Yes,
about.
No, there's AI. There's AI musicians.
Yeah.
FN Mecca,
And there's AI thoughts.
Yep.
They're like, you go on Instagram and you can tell if you look, you're like, that's not a real person.
The worst is the AI influencers have like activist causes that they champion. It's super terrifying to think that that's like a thing that's being pushed by a corporation.
How can any high school teenager trying to get attention on social media compete with a machine designed to extract attention from people?
Considering brand, really what it is you're trying to sell a brand. If you're a personality, right? If you're a musician or whatever, you're selling a brand that maybe soundtrack or whatever. How do people compete with AI generated brands that are powered by algorithms.
Well, I can tell you one thing. So everybody shits on me and Sonny because Sonny is quote unquote red pilled, and he's listened to some of the stuff that the Tates have said, and we support masculinity and free thought and free speech and this whole coming out of the matrix thing. There's no getting out of the matrix, but people will make fun of us that we even say that. And the reality is the kids that believe that this matrix exists find themselves to be far less vulnerable than the kids that just sit in it and sit like this in their phones. They understand that there's a lot of media manipulation, that AI is manipulating them. And they question things. Now, some of them are just dopey assholes who just think that they should follow every single thing the Tates say, and they're missing the point of thinking for themselves.
Well, a couple things that we have taught our kids. First of all, Tom would always tell them from the time they were really little that nothing you see on a screen anywhere is real, ever. The other thing is that I taught them continually, question everything you see. Question everything, and not just on a screen. Question anything you see that somebody tells you. Are they trying to influence you? What is the gain for them? What is their motive? Who's funding them? No, and so in real life, just question everything you see. And that sort of translates to driving a car, being in a relationship, doing a transaction with a business associate. Just question everything. It doesn't mean that you're a conspiracy theorist. It doesn't mean that you are paranoid. It means that you are being responsible for everything that you are getting in alignment with and agreeing with.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
really
question
is that
everything.
simple. Question
and we are
everything.
now teaching the masses not to question anything. Just nod your head, be the NPC that just goes along with everything that's pumped out there in every media space. It's so damaging.
Yeah, it really is. But how do we reach these kids? Because when you start to tell them things like that, they'll say to you, "You're a conspiracy." They've been trained to say that's conspiracy theorist. You're a white supremacist just for asking a question about should I take this vaccine. Like they'll. Which do you understand?
I do.
There's absolute absence of logic.
I think that is why Andrew Tate had to be taken out and was such a threat to the big machine, because he gave a lot of young men something to aspire to and look up to be. And, it's not like I agree with everything the man says, but his message is make more of yourself, strive to improve yourself, be a better version of yourself. And, the behemoth machine that's driving everything that's happening cannot have people thinking for themselves and trying to be better. They have to get rid of that at all costs.
Well, they're doing a good job of it with the youth. And a lot of the youth that we're seeing is that the mothers are 10, 20 years younger than us. And they're also in their phones like this.
I know. I can remember when Chance was really little and we'd be at a park somewhere and a mom would be continually on her phone. It used to break my heart for those kids because they don't, and the moms, they don't know what they're missing. Especially if you're a younger mother, you're overwhelmed and feeling like you're missing out on something. And you're going to do that instead of being with your kid, who you're going to blink and they're going to be gone.
So you're missing out on watching your kid grow up.
You're missing out on watching your kid grow up so you can watch stupid people fight on social media.
But it's also with careers that we were convinced that our career is going to be the most important and meaningful thing we ever do. That's something that happened in like 70s and 80s with little girls, where they started teaching little girls that was going to be so important, the most important thing you could do. And it really, looking back, is absolutely not the case. That motherhood is the most important.
I don't remember that. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I don't recall that as being the message, because all that I can remember wanting to do was being a wife and a mom. Like, I still wanted to have a career, but my heart's desire was to have babies and to be a part of a family where I made my husband stronger and better when he left the house to be the man that he was going to be.
Maybe because you were raised in a different part of the country. So I was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I was raised by in a kind of a more traditional setting.
Yeah.
But a lot of the messaging was constantly like, you can be whatever you want to be. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be.
I had that messaging too.
It was a lot of it, and it wasn't
family forward.
That was more like learning by example than learning by conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just proven out that women are not happier under that guys. And these young girls are still being taught these conflicting messages, not add in. You can be a wife and a mother and a homemaker. You can be a doctor. You can be a lawyer. Like, you have all these options and they're all good. That's where we need to go back to, at least as a step in the right direction.
And not only that, but just there is a devaluing of being a mother. And if you're a stay-at-home mother, you're ridiculed in certain parts of society. And the people, the women, the men, anybody who's ridiculing that as being lazy, come on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that bringing, you can be a mother and a homemaker and raise a family. Put that back in as a valued thing that we're teaching little girls.
Yeah.
Because they now ridicule the traditional wife. There's that whole trad wife movement going online where it's women who are showing themselves cooking and cleaning all day while their husbands are at work. And the feminists are going ape shit because they can't stand to see this happening.
So I had a very successful career in the investment business, which, I'm thrilled I had that. I wouldn't want to have traded that, but nothing has brought me more validation and joy. I've had nothing that has been more meaningful in my life than raising our 3 kids and supporting my husband who was an active duty Navy SEAL at the time, on the things that he was doing. To be a part of what he was doing by letting him know that everything at home is solid. Most gratifying thing in my whole world is for my kids to be raised as strong individuals with their own very different opinions, and my husband to be downrange and know I have everything under control at home.
Right. And I think that creates a level of emotional strength and stability for children. I mean, this depression, if you're being raised by your phone and both parents are working and nobody's really spending, no adult is guiding and spending regular time with you. I've said this 1,000 times. The family dinner table is a thing of the past in many households. And that is just a shame. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Drop a sub, like the video.
Follow me on Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter. I'd love to talk to you there. Take care.